Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I'd like to turn the call over to Chuck Brady. Chuck, you may begin.
Thank you, Greg, and hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2022 Economic Census Informational Webinar. As Greg said, my name is Chuck Brady. I am Chief of our Respondent Outreach and Promotion Branch. And I'm here with my colleague, Carrie Kleindienst, and we're looking forward to spending the next hour with you.
There we go.
Here's our agenda for today. I'm going to explain what is the economic census, why is response important, and share some information about our census data stories, which are our campaign designed to promote response to the economic census. And then Carrie's going to step in and share information about using Census Bureau data, key information for respondents. So for those of you out there that are respondents to the economic census, this is information you'll want to hear. And then we'll talk a bit at the end about sharing the word. So what is the economic census? Before I really dig into that, we know now that the Census Bureau measures more than just people. Although most that we speak to and that we find in research that most people are aware of the Census Bureau for the 10-year decennial census that measures the population. The most recent one we did, as everybody knows, is in 2020. But most people don't know, or many people don't know, that we also measure the economy. In fact, the Census Bureau conducts more than 30 economic census surveys each year, including the economic census, which measures U.S. businesses every 5 years. Now, a little bit more about those economic surveys that we do. We conduct monthly and quarterly surveys, including key economic indicators essential for tracking the GDP. We cover economic sectors such as retail and wholesale trade. We have information on building permits and imports and exports. So for instance, the monthly retail trade survey, you may have heard about data from that particular survey on the nightly news, where you could have heard that retail sales went up or down a particular percentage point in a certain month. Well, that all comes from the Census Bureau. We're not sourced. It's not attributed to us in those reports, but it does come from the Census Bureau. We also conduct annual surveys that provide data for nearly every economic sector in the economy. Again, retail and wholesale trade on an annual basis, service industries. We also have information on what we call county business patterns data. This is an opportunity because most of the surveys we do between the 5-year censuses are based on at the company level. But for county business patterns, we actually ask data on an individual establishment level. So if a company has 1,000 locations, we ask for a report for each of those locations. And so what that allows us to do, and you'll hear more about this in a moment, it allows us to report information at a very detailed geographic level, because the information we collect and then disseminate are allocated to those specific geographic levels. And then the annual business survey is another very, very interesting and important survey we conduct between the 5-year censuses and including in the 5-year census years that asks for information. It's the only opportunity we take to ask information about the characteristics of the business owners. So we have resulting data by economic sector, but also by business owners' sex, ethnicity, race, and even veteran status. So it's very, very important data that we collect at the Census Bureau that most people don't even know we have. And then we have the reason we're here this afternoon, the economic census. It's our official measure of U.S. business and the economy. Again, we conduct it every 5 years for years ending in 2 and 7, and the 2022 economic census is now underway. So we collect during 2023 for business activity taking place during 2022. I say here that we collect 2022 year-end numbers, but we work with companies that collect information on a fiscal basis, and we work with them to collect that information as well. The response deadline is March 15th, 2023. Now, all responses are strictly confidential, and company data is used for statistical purposes only under U.S. Code Title 13. Now, we are protected, the data is protected, and as census employees, we are sworn for life. So even after we retire or leave the agency, whatever it happens to be, we are sworn for life to keep the information that we've had access to private and secure. Now, that same Title 13 of the U.S. Code requires response to the economic census. So why is response important? Response to the economic census sets the statistical benchmark for official statistics on the U.S. economy. Every 5 years, this benchmark for the nation's economy helps benchmark statistics from the surveys I just mentioned, the annual, quarterly, and monthly surveys that the Census Bureau does, but not only from the Census Bureau, but other U.S. government surveys from the Bureau of Labor Statistics to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, Department of Agriculture, and other agencies and departments within the federal system. The 5-year economic census also provides data that supports state and local government surveys and benchmarking and just complementing the data that they produce, as well as data that comes from associations and private sector economic measures. So we set the standard every 5 years to ensure the most accurate statistics possible in the years that follow the economic census. The economic census is the most detailed and comprehensive data available. It's the only survey that measures all businesses with employees. And it's the only survey that provides detailed statistics by industry and geography down to the local level. And most people don't know this, and it may be one of the most important things we say today. Data from all Census Bureau surveys are free and available online for all to use. So if you want access to our data, you come to census.gov, you will have access to free data. And really, it's that notion that is the foundation of our Data Stories campaign that we developed. And this really, it comes down to us being able to provide examples of the data in our personas that we developed. And the first story we told was that of James.
It's all about making smart decisions for my business.
Meet James, the proud owner of a very popular local restaurant.
When we decided it was time to open our second location, we needed information to help us pick the right spot. And you know where we found it? The U.S. Census Bureau. Sure, they measure the population, but they have data on the whole economy, every industry and geography. It helped us find the perfect spot in just the right location.
The most comprehensive collection of business statistics is the Economic Census. The Economic Census comes every 5 years and is conducted online. Responses by companies are kept confidential and are required by law. This data fuels the local, regional, and national statistics used for planning and decision-making. Statistics used by business owners like James.
Sure work for our business.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. In addition to the story we told with James, for the 2022 economic census, we developed a dozen data stories using actual data. Here's Lily, who used Census Bureau data to secure a small business loan for her convenience store in the Houston area. Statistics made possible by response to the economic census. Now notice her story here is paired with actual data from our Census Business Builder. And Carrie's going to share more information about this and other tools in just a moment. And here's Jerome, who used Census Bureau data to determine hiring needs for his new construction site in New York City. And now that you know a little bit more about how we provide awareness of economic data from the Census Bureau, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie for more about using our data tools and information for respondents to the economic census.
Thank you, Chuck. As you said, let's dive a little deeper into the free data that's available online for you to use. So again, we're going to use these stories to show you some of the different tools that you can use. This is at a very high level, but I just want to give you a little bit of a taste of what you can find and how it can help you. So here in this story, Linda used Census Bureau data to help find the best location for her new bakery. And if you notice, right here at the bottom of the ad, we source the Census Business Builder. So if you go to this website, it's listed in the upper right-hand corner. It says cbb.census.gov. You will start at the United States level. So the first thing, if you're Linda in Columbus, Ohio, the first thing you would do is you would search for your location. So Columbus is in Franklin County, Ohio, so she would add that and select it from the drop-down. And then she could add her particular industry. So in this case, she has a retail bakery. So she can search for bakeries and select the appropriate industry code. And then she can click to create a customized report. And this report has a number of different data points and screens, but here's one screenshot I did want to show you. If you take a look on the left-hand side, you can see there's information, there's entire sections on the consumers or the residents of the identified geography. But then there is also information on businesses in that geography, specifically within this industry. So here you can see some stats and figures that she was able to look at, such as average employment per employer and average payroll per employee, to help her make some business decisions. So next, I want you to meet Paula, and Paula's team used census data to help set their economic development plan for Manhattan. And the tool that we're going to use with Paula is Quick Facts. As you can guess by the name, this is a tool that we have at the Census Bureau for you to find facts quickly. So again, with this tool, it starts at the US level. You can enter in the geography that you're interested in. So in this example, we're going to select New York. And here you can see that New York County was added to her table next to the US numbers. And since they are interested in business data from their topics, they can drop down and select business. And then that will filter the table to the business data for that location. Now, of course, we know that people might be also interested in some of the other facts and statistics from this area. So if you want to, you can also go back up and look at all of the facts that we have for this location. And the last tool that I want to take a quick walk through is data.census.gov. And we're going to use Joseph and his florist in Montgomery County, Maryland as an example. So this is a little video. I can get my cursor in the right spot. This is a video that I'm going to narrate over. So first you can go to data.census.gov and you would be able to type in florist in Montgomery County, Maryland. Select it from the drop-down. There you can see it zooms in on the location. And then he could go over and select to view the profile. That way he can learn about florists in this location. Then you can also go back and access all the tables that have data on this industry at that location. Get my cursor right. There we go. And then here's a summary of all those tools. Again, as I mentioned, this was just a high-level walkthrough of some of the tools that are available. We do have various webinars. You've probably even attended some of them that go into more depth of how to access these tools. But I did just want to start with a high-level look at what tools are available in the wealth of data that we have. So, information for respondents. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of how we can respond to the survey that is currently underway. The first thing I want to note is that not every business in the US will have received the 2022 Economic Census. The Economic Census only goes to employer businesses, meaning those businesses with paid employees. We have a separate program for statistics for businesses without employees, like independent contractors or people who are self-employed. It is fittingly named non-employer statistics because they are not employers. And also, it's important to know that some industries are excluded from the Economic Census because that data is collected from other federal agencies, for example, agriculture and education. Now, what I do want to highlight here is that light blue circle that you see on the slide. Data from over 8 million employer business locations are represented in the Economic Census. But to reduce burden on the business community, not every business is contacted. Approximately 4 million business locations, or that darker blue circle on the slide, are contacted to respond. And for the remaining 4 million small businesses, administrative records are used in lieu of direct reporting. So as I mentioned, we have about 4 million locations receiving letters, so let's talk about those letters just a little bit more in depth. Our official letters started to mail out on January 31st and continued into the first part of February. These letters contain a one-time use authentication code that is unique to the company to access their survey online. If respondents already have an account to complete Census Bureau economic surveys, through our secure website, they can log in and add their authentication code to this particular survey to their account. And if respondents don't already have an account, they will need to create an account. Now, this account is very similar to all the other online accounts that we've been creating over the last decade, or at least for sure the last 5 years. It's very common to have an account even to order pizza. So we ask them to have an email address as a username, to create a unique password, and then you need to set security questions in case that password you created is a little too unique and you need to reset it later because you forget. And then all of this is done at our website, portal.census.gov. There are a variety of ways to get help for this survey. We have help online in the portal. So within the portal, you can access frequently asked questions or send us a secure message. And even within the questionnaire, there's help on particular questions. As with most of our surveys, help is available online, and we ask businesses who have questions to call the customer helpline that's on the letter that we mail to them, and that is available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'd like to go over some of the more details of what information is required, because one of the things that makes the Economic Census unique, and Chuck alluded to this, or different from a lot of our other surveys, is that it collects information for each business location. That is how we're able to provide summary statistics for counties and cities and other detailed geographies. The example that I always like to give is if I owned a sit-down pizza restaurant and I had 3 locations across 2 counties, I would need to complete 3 questionnaires, one for each of my locations. And the reason why that's important is because we would want to make sure that we are capturing the economic activity for the appropriate county or location that it is in. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about this list that you can see on my slide. So the first thing is we ask businesses to provide a physical location if it's different than the mailing address, and also to verify their EIN. They also need to select the primary business activity, report sales, receipts, or revenue, and employment and payroll numbers for each location. And then personally, I think this is where it starts to get interesting. We have industry-specific questions tailored to the industry that businesses are in. We have just under 800 different versions depending on the industry. So if you think back to that example I gave you, there are specific questions for restaurants. For me, as I mentioned with my 3 pizza locations, I would need to break out sales by products, such as food prepared for immediate consumption versus catering versus any type of rental revenue that I might have if I have a party room located in my restaurant as well. And those product breakouts, if you think about it, those particular breakouts wouldn't make much sense for a different type of business. For example, like a hardware store. There's probably not a lot of catering happening out of a hardware store, but we would ask them to break it down by categories that make sense for their industry. And then finally, we have additional questions that are just very specific to the industry. So back to my pizza example, we ask all restaurants for an average meal price. And new for this economic census, we're asking whether or not they have started to use self-ordering kiosks or tablets and handheld devices if at the table service tables. So those are ways that we've adapted some of our industry questions based on the changes that are happening in our economy, but also tailoring it to specific industries and businesses. And then finally, my last bullet point, I mentioned that we have almost 800 different versions of this particular questionnaire, and you can see each of those at the link here on the slide. It's easiest to find your specific form if you've already logged into the Respondent portal, because there it will list which version of the form that your business has received. Back on. There we go. We also have a variety of resources online to help you get answers to the questions you might have as you're starting to complete the survey. I'm going to switch and do a quick live demo of some of those resources. I ask you to be a little bit patient as I switch my sharing screen. Okay. Okay, so here you have the website that comes on the letters and that was on the slide I just had up, which is census.gov/econ. If you scroll a little bit, maybe some of you even came to this webinar today by clicking here, maybe not. But what I want to highlight here is we have a big spotlight on the web page here that is the 2022 Economic Census Information for Respondents page. This is the primary location where if you are a respondent and you have questions, this is a great resource for you. A lot of the other links that are on the page that's showing currently, those are also linked to from this page. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. Okay, so here we are on the Information for Respondents page. You can see here it starts with an overview of what it is, and then it goes straight into ready to report or need assistance. And here again, it talks about going to the portal, the Respondent portal, and entering either signing in or creating an account, and then using your authentication code on the letter. You can also take a look at a couple key questions. How do I get started, or use the online instrument, as well as a list of FAQs. Again, here you'll notice respondent material. So here again is that link for those PDFs of all the different versions that I talked about on a previous slide. And then more information if you need more information about a primary business code or a product code, as well as if you would like to see generic versions of the letters that don't have your company identifying information on it as well. And then everybody's favorite, the authority and confidentiality information, as well as survey legitimacy, how you can confirm that what you received was a legitimate request from the Census Bureau. I'm going to go back to that census.gov/econ page. And I want to highlight, we have, so next to the big spotlighted website, we have other links that we think might be helpful. So here, first thing, you can see we have a link to our frequently asked questions. And again, as I mentioned, we have them broken out into different categories. So if you want more information about how to report, you can click on this one. And then I did get permission to make sure it was fine to share this, but it's clearly on our website in the FAQ. A common question that we get is people about how to report using estimates. So here we say it right there, a good estimate is acceptable if the figures are not available easily. We do not expect businesses to incur additional expenses in order to complete our surveys. So please know if a good estimate is all you can do to answer some of these questions, we greatly appreciate that. We back out of the FAQs. One other link I wanted to make sure I highlighted, we do have information for those in the business community who speak Spanish. One thing to note is that for most businesses, they will only be able to report in English. The exception to that is businesses in Puerto Rico. Those businesses in Puerto Rico do have the option to report in Spanish. We do have Spanish forms that they can complete. And that's, we do have here on this page, we explain that, as well as provide other content answering some key questions in Spanish that businesses might have. You scroll down a little bit more on the census.gov/econ page. I do want to notice or call out this need help section. So I think all of these links are excellent, and just wanted to highlight a few. So how do I get started? That's a very common question that people have. Here it goes into all the information you would need to know about starting and using the Respondent portal. So again, talks about how to create an account, add your authentication code, and then any other questions you might have within the portal. I know businesses might have multiple people working on a survey, so it answers the common question about how do I give my coworker access to use the system as well. And that is all answered there. We also have common questions on how to use the online instrument. So these FAQs are actually about how to navigate the response tool and common questions that respondents might have. The one that I always like to highlight down here, everybody loves this, number 18. Okay, you asked me to do this. How can I confirm that you received my submission? So here it details two different ways that businesses can confirm that they have met what is required of them. And I just have one more link I want to share. My personal favorite, Econ Census how-to videos. So I've talked about a lot of different things, help resources, and talked through how to do some of these different activities in the Respondent portal, things like that. And here we also just have direct screenshots and videos. So for example, for the Respondent portal, I've said it a couple of times. If you watch this video, it will show you how to step-by-step how to create the account, how to add your authentication code and get started. And the other FAQ that I just mentioned about how do I make sure that you received it, we have a different video that goes through that step as well. It will show you exactly where to look to confirm that your submission was received. I'm going to stop sharing the website and jump back in to this PowerPoint and hand it back over to Chuck.
Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for all that information. Everything a respondent would need to respond. Now we're at the point where we have an ask of you. We are spreading the word. We are promoting response wherever we can. And so if you're in a position to not only respond yourself, but if you're in a position to encourage others to respond, whether you have an association and there are some members that you can share this information with, whatever it might be, we're spreading the word. We would really appreciate your help in promoting response to the economic census. And here's some important takeaways to help support response. Remember that not every company receives the economic census, as Carrie said. It goes to about a little over 4 million business establishments. And so not everyone receives it. Please respond if you do receive it. The economic census due date is March 15th, 2023. Responses are confidential and are required by law under Title 13 of the U.S. Code. And then we have a respondent helpline number that is on each invitation to respond. On each letter that we mailed out, the number is there. So anyone can call that number at any time. We've got a great staff and they're ready to answer your questions. And of course, like I said earlier, maybe the most important thing, results are free and available online. So spread that word as well, because we want people to use this data. So there's so many that don't know it's available, and it's free and available online. And find support at the website Carrie just demonstrated, census.gov/econ. It has everything that a respondent needs to support response. Here's some more iterations I just wanted to share with you with our Data Stories campaign. If anyone has the need for any materials, brochures, digital assets, we have these available for you. If you want to use them for a banner on a website, in a newsletter, however you see fit, please reach out to us. We've got the information on the next page on how you can do so. And we'd be happy to support you. We'd be happy to not only provide the materials, but to talk things through and help you strategize how to provide that sort of outreach on our behalf. Now, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know I know everybody's busy, and we appreciate you jumping in to join us for the webinar. If you have response questions, here's the phone number here, and the customer service hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 8 Eastern. And for any informational questions, please feel free to email the email address below. That's our branch, and we'd be happy to provide any support you need. But thank you again, everybody. I hope you have a great day.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.